Hey everyone, Suntide here, and I made a set builder for Rune Factory 4 Special. Link in the description, check that out. And that's all I wanted to say. This video's timeline probably gives it away. It's a lot more than that. It's mainly going to be about that. Basically, spreadsheets are really cool, and something I don't think are appreciated very much. And as someone who is, in fact, partially a physics teacher, I thought it would be a waste of opportunity to not use this as a chance to teach, hopefully, some really cool things to people who like video games. Basically, I think that spreadsheets are very underappreciated. Like, even as a physics teacher, even like some of my best students who are like physics students in their undergraduate degree, don't understand a lot of the complex stuff behind spreadsheets. And I thought I would just give a quick rundown of how to make it. Give you a quick rundown of how to make it, go through some spreadsheets I've made for like the gaming community, talk about the cool things and sort of the situations where spreadsheets are useful, and then we will make an example together. We'll make an example in Pokemon, a stat calculator to calculate a Pokemon stats, because I think that's a nice example and shows some pretty cool and useful functions. Just some quick examples. So here's the Rune Factory spreadsheet. Basically, so it has a few different pages. We have the README, which is just basically quick instructions. We have one page that shows the final build. So basically it gives all of the stats of the item and all the things you put inside it. And the only things you modify are in each of the individual pages for the items. You basically change it from this drag down menu or type it down. Let's type in the Rune blade, I guess. And that'll automatically update everything for you. It'll calculate everything automatically. How it actually works is relatively simple. Basically, OmniGamer made this. I hope you weren't able to see that. OmniGamer made this incredibly useful data mining compendium, which has all of the useful information for like everything in the game. So it has a whole list of equipment and all of their stats, upgrade materials and all of their stats. And all I do in this is I have a table. Basically, I copy those tables directly via copy paste. So this is the upgrade table, and I basically, in each of these sheets, I look up those tables, put them in, add them together, and print it in the final build. It's incredibly simple. There are a few things I change. So I have to change, there are different items that have different effects. So if you've seen these videos, you know about things called Object X, or double steal, or tenfold steal. So I sort of need to hard code their effects in these formulas. So for example, if you look at this, it has a special if statement for double steal or tenfold steal. It takes those into account and stuff like that. But each of those individual steps are relatively straightforward. So double still doubles the effects of the previous thing. So I make that a very simple problem, and I just say, okay, if the item is double steal, double the effects. But there's a special case where you can use double steal twice, so I check if there's no double steal. So there's a lot of exceptions, but for the most part, it's very straightforward. There's a fancy word for that with regards to programming in general. It's called abstraction. You just abstract your sort of big problem into smaller problems. So the big problem is, how do I calculate builds for Rune Factory? The smaller problem becomes, how do I calculate the stats for each weapon? Because if I put all the stats of each weapon, I can just add them together. And then it's, okay, how do I get the stats for each upgrade item? And then the smaller problem is, okay, what does each upgrade item do? And then it's, okay, double steal. And then it's, okay, what if there are multiple double steals? Whenever you're working in the final level problem, you can completely ignore the big problem. So when I am working on what happens if there are multiple double steals, I completely ignore everything else. And that makes it really simple. That means I don't need to think about this entire thing at once. And if you keep that in mind, work on small problems to build up to big problems, It's how Google happens, I guess. Like, yeah, that's how like programming works in general. So it's all about abstracting these problems. And I think one thing that's really, like one useful example for that is when I did my Monster Hunter video. So I don't think anyone before me looked at elemental damage for Longswords in Monster Hunter, because it's quite complicated and it's quite weird. Basically how elemental works is you get like an extra bit of damage that doesn't change depending on your attack. Basically in Monster Hunter, different attacks do different amounts of damage, but the elemental damage always changes. And the question was, how much do you care about increasing the elemental damage versus how much do you care about increasing the other damage? So I did the math on that, and I abstracted that into calculating, okay, how to calculate the elemental damage, how to calculate the raw damage, the other damage, and then it's just, okay, how do I figure out which one is bigger? We'll compare them, and once we compare them, we're just like, okay, which one is higher? You're just abstracting the big problem into smaller problems, and that way you never really need to think about too much at once. So that's what happens here. Basically, I turn the big problem into, how many of this thing do we need to do more? How many of this attack do we need for it to be worth it? How many won't it be? And therefore you have your solution. Yeah, I'm very proud of this just because no one else had done it before. Other people like To This Information use it as well. A very large YouTuber with like a lot of subscribers, multiple 100,000, just took my results and didn't cite me. Slightly salty about that still. But yeah. So spreadsheets are very useful for these things. Okay. But yeah, so how and why? So it's always important to know the right tool for the job, and sometimes spreadsheets aren't worth it. So the obvious case is like, if I just want to type in the value, okay. So sometimes spreadsheets just aren't worth it. So if I want to figure out like what 2 plus 2 is, I'm not going to open up a spreadsheet. It'll take too long. I can do it in my head. 2 plus 2 is 4. Genius. If I want to do something more complicated, like what is 230 times 127? I could use a spreadsheet. I could just type into Google. What's 230 times 127? Yeah. You don't need a spreadsheet for stuff like this. You can just use a calculator or the internet. So spreadsheets are nice and useful if you're trying to look at multiple numbers at once or trying to do the same thing a lot of the time. Okay, so if instead of trying to multiply 230 by 127, I want to figure out like what all of these numbers are times 127 is. So let me make a new spreadsheet. So if instead of figuring out what 230 times 127 is, I want to figure out what all the numbers are times 127. So basically, if you've never seen a spreadsheet before, incredibly simple. You have boxes, and in boxes you can type in numbers or equations. So I put in the number 127 here, and I put the numbers 1 to 6, and I'm going to type in the equation. So I can just type in the equation 127 times 5 to give me the answer. Or I can just select the boxes equals 127 times, so B1 times A2. If I change the number A2, it changes automatically. Super easy. So what Excel does, also lets me do, is I can drag this down and it'll automatically fill it in and fill it in with its own sort of logic. And the logic is that whenever I change it, it'll change the formula correspondingly. So basically here it says look at the number above it, type the number next to it, and multiply that by 127. Number next to it, which is 2 times 127, which is 254. This one, let's set the number next to it, and this one, and use 15,240. This would be too complicated to put in a normal calculator, so this is what you'd use Excel for. If I don't want to multiply the previous number, but just want to multiply it by 127, I can use a $sign. So the $sign says you're going to be A2, and you're never going to be anything but A2. So if I drag this down, Here it'll always say the number A2, so it'll always multiply by 1. I actually meant the other one. So we're going to make it B1, and I'll think about B1. Drag that down. So now it's 127 times 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can change this number to 12. And that's my 12 times tables. Yeah, so Excel is nice if you're dealing with multiple numbers at once. If you're trying to deal with something more complicated than that, then that's where you start learning actual programming languages. So in general, yeah, if I deal with complicated things that you can't do in Excel, you'll know if they're too complicated for Excel. I use Python. Alternatively, if it is something I want to actually visualize, I would use Python because I don't like how Excel plots things. A video game example of using Python is a video made by my good friend, KJ Pang. Check out this channel or video, especially if you like Monster Hunter. So he is a scientist. He does vision science. He's a vision scientist, psychology stuff, so how the brain interprets vision. And so in his work, he uses a lot of computer vision to see how computers see things. And in Monster Hunter, for the weapon he likes, the switch axe, there's this meter on the top left, which I'm circling now. And basically, when this has certain indicators, you do more damage or less damage. So he basically created code that detects the status of this meter, and from that developed better builds. That's not something you can do in Excel. This video is insane and amazing. Check it out if you can, if you're interested. But yeah, so that's something you can't do in Excel, but also if I wanted to plot something, I would do it in Python as well. Okay, so back to spreadsheets. Yeah, so these things aren't just addition and multiplication. You can do some very minor logic and coding. So two cool examples that we'll go through when we go through our actual example is VLOOKUP. Type it in here. VLOOKUP. And VLOOKUP, what you would do is you would type in VLOOKUP equals VLOOKUP, and then you will put in 4 different values. Okay. So the first value, I'm going to type this here actually. The first value you're going to type in is going to tell you what you're looking for. The second value you put in is going to tell you where to look. And the final value you're going to tell it is, is brain freeze. What to tell us. And the final number is going to be 1. 0. There's a weird quirk in VLOOKUP. Just always make the last number 1. Sorry, 0. It makes it much easier. So basically, so what we're going to look for example, let's say we want to look up this table, and instead of actually calculating the number 48, we're going to let it tell us the number 48. So in other words, we just want VLOOKUP to tell us number 48 without actually calculating. We're going to look in this table for it. We're going to look for the value that's next to the number 4. So we're going to look for 4. Or more specifically, we're going to look for 4. We're going to look within this column, in the table. We're going to try and tell us the second column. Okay, and this is going to be 0. So we're going to look for the number 4 in this table, and we're going to want it to tell us the value 48 in the second column. And to do that, we're going to put VLOOKUP. We're going to give it the value 4, or whatever's in this cell. We're going to look in the entire table, so we're going to drag along the entire table. You're going to tell us the second column, and the last one will be 0. And tell us the number 48. And now whatever is in this column, hi, Ralph was here. It'll change that automatically by looking in the table. If I delete this, make this say something else, it'll freak out and try something else. It'll try to approximate. But yeah, cool. So, The other interesting function that we're going to talk about here briefly is the function if, which is probably simpler and maybe I should have started with. So if takes in three different, again, we call them arguments, the things we put in. The first thing is going to be a condition. The second thing is going to be a what happens if yes, and also what happens no. Okay? So, hi. So in here we're saying the word hi. If A19 equals hi, so this is our condition. If A19 is hi, we're going to say hi to you too. If not, we're going to say, why didn't you say hi? Very example. So A19 says hi, so we're going to say hi to you too. If he doesn't say hi, if he says hello, it's going to ask why you didn't say hi. Yeah, so this is basically an if statement, and these things can be very useful. So with this if and with this VLOOKUP, we're going to make a pretty cool example here of a Pokemon stat calculator. Yay! Okay, so making this is very, very simple, and I would strongly encourage you to follow along, either with Google Sheets, freely available, or in Excel if you have it. Very, very simple. Here I'm going to assume you're on Google Sheets. So how do Pokemon stats even work? I'm going to quickly Google how do Pokemon stats work. Okay, cool. Bulbapedia gave us an answer. We can go to stats in Bulbapedia. We can scroll down, and here the determination of stats depends on these things. So base stat values, we're going to type that in. So base stat values, level, so level affects all the stats. Nature, individual values, and effort values. And this is for Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu. So we look. And it's different stats for generations 1 and 2. And different stats for generation 3 over somewhere. Cool. So we have the equations here, and all we need to do is type them in. Very, very simple. So we're going to just make that a bit cleaner. So level will go there. And we're going to put in all the different stats, which are HP, attack, def, special attack, special defense, and speed. Yeah, SPD means special defense, because I'm old school. We're going to assume that our base stats are going to be 100 everywhere. Okay, that'll be the simplest way. And now we're going to put in the nature. Okay, so how natures work is basically sometimes different natures give a 10% bonus or 10% gain, 10% loss to a stat. So we're just going to type in for now that we have +1, we got 10% extra attack and 10% less special attack because we are adamant to get this problem done. IVs range from 0 to 31, so we're just going to assume we have 31 right now. And effort values can be any number from 0 to 52, but they must add up to less than 510. So we're just going to be simple, and we're going to put in the number, say, 53 for each one. Cool. Final step. And very simple. We just need to type in this equation. Okay, so I mean that half jokingly, like it is not that complicated. It is relatively simple in the sense that it is just addition, multiplication, division, and this thing that we call flooring, which just means we round it down. It's super simple. Each step is super simple, and this is why I talked about abstraction before. We're going to take this big equation and turn it into little steps, okay? So the simplest step is, for example, taking this, the thing that's narrowest is this value, which is EV divided by 4. So we're going to take EV divided by 4 equals B7 divided by 4, B7 being the EV value. And then we do this thing that we call flooring, so we can floor that, equals floor of B9. Next step, you want to get 2 times the base plus IV plus EV on 4. So 2 times the base plus the IV plus that modified EV value. Do we get to 44? And then we multiply that all by the level. We didn't put the level in yet, so we'll just say we're level 53. I put 53 already. 59 right now. So, okay, I'll double check that. Yep, so we multiply that number by the level. B11 times the level. And then we divide that by 100. Equals B12 divided by 100. And then, yeah, we floor it one more time. B13. Cool. And then things change a bit. So for HP, we do level plus 10, and for all the other stats, we take that plus 5 times the nature. So we can just copy this across, and then it changes. So for HP, it was, again, plus level plus 10. So I might have missed something. Why did I multiply by 11? Or I think I did something dumb. I just did a quick typo. It should be B1. B11 times B1, which is 11. Yep. And yeah, so when you drag that across, we're going to drag it across. We're going to have slight issues here because the level try to get dragged across as well, which is what we don't want to do. So we're going to make sure that we put the $sign in to make sure it doesn't change. And now I can drag it across, it's happy. Cool, but yes, so now things change again. So the HP gets plus level plus 10. So we're just going to be equals this last column, plus level plus 10. And for the other stats, we're going to go plus 5 times nature and floored. So equals C14 plus 5 equals C15 times the nature, and then equals C16 floored. We can drag those across, and we are done. So the final stat is going to be this one. Starts out here. It's going to be this one. And we can drag that all across. And we're done. If you want to be slightly fancier, we can make a new sheet. We can copy this ugly math over there. I didn't give it titles just to be nice. Oops. So copy the ugly math. The equations will automatically follow. Copy the titles. And it's right there. It's done. So if you modify the base stat to 90, we should modify the HP and stuff like that. HP doesn't have a nature, so we'll just delete that. We can decrease our IVs to 23, and yeah. So one thing we always want to do is you want to verify what we're doing is correct. Luckily, stat calculators work. So I'm just going to do a little stat calculator. Pokemon. Go to SciPoke. So the Pokemon we used, for example, with the base stats of 100 is Jirachi. We made the level 59. What did I make the IVs? 31? Yep, and the EVs are 53. Are all 53. And the nature was indeed adamant. Submit. So, HP 212. Oops, something went wrong. Okay. Attack is 162, correct. Defense is 148. Special attack is 133. 148 and 133. 148 and 148. Cool, and it all worked out. We just did something wrong with the HP. That's fine. So we'll go back there. What happened to 11 again? I think I'm just very strange right now. Sorry, so instead of doing the 11, we're going to go there. We're going to put in the level. To automatically detect level. So basically, if we leave the slot, we can go just select the box. So select the box B1 in that sheet. And now it should work. So 212, 212, everything works. So if we change the level to something else, to 97, and we calculate it, HP 343, attack 265, defense 241, attack 216, and the last ones are also 241. Woo, my stat calculator works. And that was it. That took like not that long, I think 10-15 minutes or so. Now we can make this slightly fancier as well in a few different ways. So one way I thought would be cool is by, instead of putting in the nature values, we can do it like this calculator did over here, where we just select the nature from a list. That's nice and user-friendly for people. And doing that is actually relatively simple as well. We're just going to go up here. We're going to put in a nature column. Okay. Now to do this though, we just need a list of natures. So I'm going to type in list of natures Pokemon. Gives us a list of natures. And here we have a list of natures in Pokemon. So we have they are lonely, increases attack, decreases defense, and all of the other effects. So we're just going to copy that all, because luckily it's in a table already. We're going to make a new sheet, and in this new sheet we're going to paste in the natures. So what do we care about? We care about the nature names. So we don't need this column, we don't need the Japanese name, and we don't need the flavors. We care about the nature, the stat it increases, and the stat it decreases. So we're going to put the nature, we're going to figure out the attack it increases. So increased stat and decreased stat. Okay, so we want it such that if we type in adamant, we're going to type in adamant here, for example. That way the increased stat will automatically say attack, and the decreased stat will automatically say special attack. And then it's going to automatically change these numbers. So let's abstract that problem into a simpler problem. And the first simple problem is how do we get this to say attack and how do we get this to say special attack? And this is where we talked about VLOOKUP before, because all we want to do is we want to look up that table. So we're going to go VLOOKUP. We're going to look for the word adamant. So that's what we're looking for in the first one. The second one we said was where to look. So we're going to look in that table for the word adamant. And then we're going to get it to tell us the second column. The second word was, or to tell us the second column. So we're just going to say 2, and we're going to make the last one a 0, as usual. The increased stat is attack. And the decreased stat is basically the same thing, but instead of the second column, it's going to tell us the third column. So I'm going to copy this formula, go down there, and get it to tell us the third column. So that adamant increases your attack and decreases your special attack. To be slightly fancier, what we can do is we can go data, click up the top, data validation, and we can make sure that this value can only be a list from a range. The list from a range shown in these cells. Just going to drag along those names and click Show drop-down list in cell. So now, instead of typing in adamant, we're going to draw from a list and put in timid instead. Timid increases speed and decreases attack. We're slightly fancier. And now the last thing we want to do is to make sure that these worked. So let's abstract the problem further. We want to be able to figure out which one to increase, and we want to figure out which one to decrease. So the simpler problem is, which one do we increase? And that's very simple. Because we can do that with if statements. So if the increased stat, so if B3 is attack, but wait a second, instead of typing in attack, we can just tell it if B3 is the name of this heading, then we multiply by 1.1, otherwise we multiply by 1. So that doesn't work quite yet because the name's not consistent. So this one says, okay, that's wrong for a few reasons. One, there's no dollar sign. So we're dragging across the B3, which you don't want to do. So now they're all looking at this B3 column. So now it works fair. But if we set adamant instead, this says attack, this is ATK, so we just want to make sure they're all consistent. So we're going to type in attack here, defense here, sp.attack here, and sp.defense here. Cool. And now that works. And now we need to take into account the decreased attack. So we're going to do what we call a nested if statement. In an if, we're going to put in another if. So if it isn't an increased attack, we're going to check if it's in a decreased attack. So before, put the dollar signs this time. If before is in C6, before equals C6, 0.9, otherwise it'll be 1. And that's that. Now, adamant increases attack and decreases special attack. And that's it. That is our stat calculator. We put in a level, we put in the base stat, we put in the nature, we put in the IVs and EVs, and we're done. Yeah, that's basically it. There is one thing we can do to make it slightly fancier, and that's making us not put in the base stat. Okay? I'm not going to go through this, but I'll just go through what you can do. I think if I go Google Pokemon stats, Pokemon base stats. Oh, I think that's already there. Cool. So we have a list of base stats. So if I wanted to, I could copy this entire table. It's a big table. So this might take a bit. But if I copy the entire table, I can tell it to look through, I can create a drag down list, just like I did with the natures, for instead of the nature name, the Pokemon name, and get it to automatically fill in the base stats for me, so I don't need to type it out. And that's just like the natures. In fact, it's probably simpler because we don't need the if statement. So I want to leave that to an exercise for you, the viewer. I'm going to put this spreadsheet in the description. So just make a copy, so you can go File, make a copy, and edit it yourself. And I want you to try and figure out how to put the Pokemon names in and to get it to automatically fill in the base stats. And if you do that, please tell me. I would love to see it, and I would give you a, if I ever see you in person, I'll buy you bubble tea. Yeah, it's my deal with my students as well, or coffee. But yeah, so do your homework. And yeah, so in summary, spreadsheets are cool, useful for video games and for like actual life. Like this is a decent amount of what I actually do in work, and stuff like that. So yeah, spreadsheets, great, even video games. And with that, yeah, see you later. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Crafting video, next one will hopefully be soon. I'll work on that later today / tomorrow. And yeah, see y'all next time. Bye.